So, which spiral are you on? I am so glad you chose not to skip this step. I've been working with folks for 5 years, hearing stories of assault and abuse. And one theme that's prevalent and corrodes healing is an unwillingness to validate your own experiences for all of what they were. And honestly, I've struggled with this step over and over again. So, depending on which path I take, there are two spirals I've noticed show up when I'm willing to either validate or invalidate my story and its impact. The invalidation spiral looks like, it usually peaks after a trigger and when you first start working through your story. So those are two kind of high peak seasons where an invalidation spiral might show up. What this could look like is questioning why there's still impact from the experience. So really undermining the fact that it was a big deal and wanting to rush healing. Bringing to mind comments or actions of people from when the experience was invalidated, and then giving that voice so much influence. Could look like wondering if you did something to deserve what happened to you, or what you could have done to prevent the event, or any other thought that places blame on you for your experience. This is going to be the story that you tell yourself that leads to further invalidation. And another one would be something to the effect of, I should be able to deal with this better, or this wouldn't keep happening if I was stronger, or if I had more courage, or if I could just get over it. And really what that comes down to is just being hard on yourself. What this all leads to is really shame. Just shame. So then what is the antidote to this? How do we get out of this invalidation spiral and really seek to find grace for ourselves and our story? Well, I think one idea for this, and an antidote that has really helped me, is the validation spiral. It looks much, much different. And it sounds like acknowledging that your story happened, it was a big deal, and it mattered. Recognizing the impact of the experience as rape, and that may include looking closer at details, knowing that those details are where the impact hides. It's also where the healing hides. Validating means making a decision that no one else's response to your story determines its validity. You can find someone who will validate the reality when you can't. That's been really important for me. And realizing and really affirming that you are not what happened to you. I am not what happened to me. My hurt doesn't get to run me. What happened to me and who I am are separate. And that means that I get to choose what to do with my experience because it's not part of my identity, although it did leave an imprint. This spiral leads to grace. Grace for self, grace for your story. The question is, where do you find yourself? I tend to bounce between the two, so this is not an either or question by any of the sort. It's simply, where do you find yourself more often? Can you see how each spiral has the power to set a foundation for your journey of learning as you navigate sexual trauma? Because shame is friends with hopelessness. And hopelessness invites us to sit in our pain and make up stories about why we're better off if we stay here. But grace invites us into hope. Hope that things could be different, that we're loved and lovable, and that our pain points are not a reflection of our character. That means we can both acknowledge our story and move forward into freedom. Your next step is to script a shame stopper phrase that you can return to when you catch yourself getting sucked into the spiral of shame. This phrase is one that you should be able to remember so you can literally stop the spiral in its tracks with a phrase of truth that's penned in your own voice. You know yourself, so think about one thing you would tell yourself when you are in a shame spiral, and that is the thought that you're seeking to disrupt. Here are 3 filters. I find filters helpful, guidelines that I would ask you to run your shame stopper statement through. And this is so you can maximize its stickiness in your mind. So the filters are: find a phrase that you believe or you are working to believe. Keep it short and memorable, and the goal is that it directly disrupts the shame story that you tend to fall into. So here's a formula that I have used, and you can use it as you would like to guide your own statement. And it's just how you really feel and a truthful hope-finding statement. You can see there's guidelines, but it's also very customizable. So this 2-part formula, it doesn't brush past the painful truth. Remember, we're seeking the validation spiral. It just offers a new perspective. And it's flexible for you to fill in your own words. So my shame stopper phrase is, my pain matters as part of my story, and my pain has purpose. My pain matters as part of my story, and my pain has purpose. You can hear the validation in it. How I really feel about it is that it's painful, but that there's also purpose and hope found in it. So, you are now ready for your first how action steps. Your next steps are going to be to identify what your spirals of grace and shame look like and get curious about where you spend your time. Now, this can take some awareness over the next week or so. So come back to it, think about it, think about where you find yourself most often. And remember, the hint here is grace, right? Grace that if you realize, wow, I invalidate a lot of my story, that you can come back to the antidote of grace. Then you're going to formulate your shame-stopping phrase and practice it. I will put the 3 filters and the formula below this video for your reference. And then you will see a form below where you can write your phrase down to help you remember it. The form will actually email your bold statement back to you. And this is so you have it handy, and you'll get that along with a little bit of encouragement from me. So now it's your turn.